Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for part 3 of our Automatic and Bluehost webinar series, which is going to be growing beyond setup into success. We're very excited to talk to you today about all the different ways that you can help to build your brand and your business and some things that you can use to track your success over time. All right, it looks like everybody's joining in now. We are going to go ahead and get started. Again, this is part 3 of our webinar series with Bluehost, Jetpack, and WooCommerce. This is the last of 3 weeks. Thank you for joining us. If you've made it through all 3 weeks, we're excited to have you back again. Today, we're going to be talking about setup, going beyond the setup and into success. This is a little bit more of like a marketing type of conversation. We'll give you a little bit more information on ways to like track your success and make sure that you're doing the right things for your business for the long haul. I will be talking most of today, so hopefully you enjoy hearing me talk. But I will go ahead and introduce myself. But before we do that, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping to make sure everyone can hear me. If you can use the little hand that is in the corner of your screen, I'd like to make sure you can raise that just to prove that you can hear today. Okay, I see some hands going up. That's perfect. So also, if you have any questions, please use the questions window that you see on the side of your screen as well. That will allow you to reach out to us. I am the one presenting for the most part today, but we do have a lot of friends and a lot of experts on the line. They'll be going through your questions in that window throughout the webinar series, the webinar today. They'll also be, chiming in at the end potentially for any feedback or any other thoughts that they have. So even if I'm talking, there will be people here online that can help answer your questions. We do have a lot of people on the line today, so we will try to answer as many questions as possible, but it is very likely that we will miss some of them. Just as a note, we will be recording today's session. So we will send out a recording of all 3 webinars next week. That will have part 1, part 2, and today's webinar, part 3, as well as the slide deck and some FAQs that we have seen going on in the chats throughout the last 3 weeks. If you have any technical issues with the webinar today, at any point, you should definitely first try logging out and then back into the session. If you're still experiencing issues, you should call the 855 phone number that you see on your screen. The GoToWebinar support team will help you with any issues that you may have. If you, by chance, miss part of this, don't fear. Like I said, the recording will be sent out later. All right, let's get started. I am Michelle. I know it is spelled a little bit different than you've probably seen before, but I run Bluehost content. So I manage our webinars, all of the books that we create, things like that. If you haven't checked out any of our blueprint books on how to build your website, your WordPress website, or how to become a blogger, you should definitely go to www.bluehost.com/blueprint, and you can see some of the hard work we've put in to try to give you all information to help you on your website and business building journey. Awesome. So I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes, and I think it sets the tone for the entire webinar. It's a Maya Angelou quote, and it's talking about people will learn. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel. This is really important when you have a business and you're trying to get people to come back to your business, and you're trying to get that, continuous revenue, and you're trying to get people interested in what you're selling and what you're offering them as a service or a product. You really have to consider how you make them feel, how you interact with them, and how your products really make them feel. Whether it's a piece of clothing that they put on their bodies, you want them to feel, powerful and encouraged and beautiful with whatever they're wearing. If it's a service that you offer, you want them to feel empowered to use that service to better themselves or their families or their communities likewise, right? So that feeling-based emotion is really important when you're running a business to continue that success over time. So how do you actually grow your business past the setup and into success? There's a number of things that we'll talk about today. Some of these things we have other webinars that go really deep into detail on, so I won't spend too much time on them today, but we will talk about valuable products and services, email, which is really important, reviews, word of mouth marketing, and social media, which are all really important to understand. So when you're running a value-based business, you really have to understand your customer experience. Your customer's experience starts at your website potentially It could start at your social media, wherever they find you, really, a review site, any of those types of things. But on your website, you really have to keep your user experience top of mind. We do have a webinar that we're going to have next month for September that will be all about user experience. So I'm not going to go too far into that today. But essentially, how does your customer navigate your site? Do they understand how to find your products or services that you're selling? Do you have too many menus going on where people don't understand how to click through to find information about you, to figure out where you are, where your business is located, things like that. So keeping your site really clean, organized, and simple to understand is really important to help them understand how to actually make a purchase or complete whatever your CTA is, which is your call to action, whether that be to schedule a consultation, to purchase a product or service, or even to contact you for questions, right? Like whatever your actual intended goal is for your customer, that needs to be very clear on your site. Your words are also part of your customer experience. How do you talk to them? What are the words that you use? Do they describe your products or services well? Do they really give you the opportunity to sell yourself and your business? And then also your service. Like, how do you make them feel after they purchase it? Do they feel like they've spent their money wisely? Do they feel like, that you really understood their need and created a solution for them? So these are all things that you want to think about when you're defining your actual customer experience. So let's talk a little bit about value-based products and services. So I know in part one, we talked a lot about understanding your audience, and Jonathan really did a great job of talking about, why that's important to understand who they are and where they are on the internet and in the world, right? You really have to understand their need in order to offer a solution. So identify the needs, offer the solution. So being able to say who they are, whether that be a demographic or a specific type of business that you're running. So if you offer marketing services specifically towards nonprofits, right? You identify that your audience is a nonprofit. So that can be a range of people in terms of who's running the nonprofit, but understanding the type of business that you're trying to attract is really number one and key in offering a value-based solution. So then you need to understand where to find them. Are your customers online? Like, are they finding you at field marketing events, at conferences? Do they genuinely, spend a lot of time on Instagram? All those different types of things allow you to understand where to spend your time and, in honesty, your money. If you're running ads on Bing, right, which is a search engine tool, if you're running site ads on Bing and your customers are primarily on Google, or they're not really finding you through that service, they're finding you through social media, you've potentially wasted a lot of money that I'm sure you've worked really hard to earn and want to continue to use to make your business successful. So on top of that, you also need to understand their problem, right? So everyone has a solution. Everyone, whether it's a shirt and you say, people need clothes to wear because it's cold outside, that's a solution to a problem. The problem being it's cold, the solution being I have a shirt to help keep you warm. So identifying what the problem is helps you to create an actual value-based solution. So does that solution that you're offering fix the problem? Does it put a Band-Aid on it? Is it a forever fix? Also knowing that potentially what you offer isn't a forever fix, right? So if you're selling something that can potentially go out again, like maybe a dishwasher, right? At some point that person's going to need a dishwasher again, but it'll be a long time before they come back to your product. Is your product going to stand the test of time until they need it again? Will you offer products or services that will allow them to help you, or you to help them in between the time that they need to replace that product? So things like that need to be considered. Also, share real stories of people who found success with your business. Reviews are huge in today's world. People that talk about your business are more than likely going to end up with a new customer. You're probably going to end up with a new customer if people are talking highly about your business, whether it be their friend or their family, which we'll talk about a little bit later, or people online. And then also you want to like keep in touch with them. So whether that be by email, by social media engagement, things like that, you have an opportunity to keep in touch with them and offer ongoing information. So if you're talking about house repairs, if you do house repairs, how do you keep that repair up? Maybe you have a blog that you add to your site that gives you information, gives people information on how to keep their investment running properly that you sold to them. So those are a few of the things you really want to consider when figuring out what the need is and figuring out how you create the solution. So some things to consider when sending emails. Email is a huge part of business in general. I know a lot of you who are Bluehost customers have identified or seen our emails that we send out. You've probably seen the email that we sent out inviting you to this webinar. So there's some things to consider when sending emails. In particular, one of the biggest things you have to think about is cadence. Cadence is talking about how many emails are you sending and when. And I know there's going to be a question about this, so I want to talk about a little bit about it. People ask, what are too many emails, right? How do I know that I'm sending too many emails to people? You know that you're sending too many emails to people when they stop opening them. I used to work in an e-commerce company before that did really well throughout the US. And we sent emails probably 2 or 3 times a week. This is an example of an email to the right of the screen from Old Navy, and I get emails from Old Navy every day. Yes, I do purchase often, and I clearly am still opening them. So their tactic is working, and it probably works because they have everyday sales or flash sales or things like that. So if you have something to say, maybe you send more emails. If you have less to say, consider lowering the amount of emails that you send, making sure they actually offer value to the person. And then notice when people are dropping off. So if you're sending an email through, for example, like Constant Contact, where you're going in and you're creating an email campaign and you're sending an email to your customers, and you notice that the first email you sent, 40% of people opened it. But then the second email you sent, 27% opened it. And then the third email, 22% opened it. Maybe those people don't want to interact as often, or they don't feel like there's a value in what you're saying. So you need to consider those 2 things. And from there, then decide, how you scale back or what things you say in your email. The second most important thing is your subject line. This is how you actually get people to open it. I usually suggest saying something catchy, something that's trendy, or something that tells them exactly what they're going to see when they opened it. So for example, this email that I was sent, their subject line was 60% off today only, which automatically, of course, made me open it because I had to see what was 60% off exactly, right? So if you're trying to give them information about something, then maybe you say tips to protect your countertops over the life of your countertops, or something like over the life of your installation. If you're selling countertops, then they may say, oh, actually, I didn't know about this. This is not something I find regularly. So now you've offered them a value and given them information that they may not have otherwise had. So consider things like that. Also timely messages like today only, now, purchase now, things like that. While they can be really, give people that sense of urgency to open and click, it also can be a little daunting for people when you tell them open right now for a new deal, right? Because it feels a little aggressive. So you have to test things like this out. There's a lot of tools out there, like for example, in Constant Contact, if you are running a campaign, you can do A/B testing, which is basically saying, I'm going to take version A of this email, and I'm going to take version B of this email, and I'm going to change something within them, whether it be the email content itself, the subject line, the time of day I sent it, things like that. And then you can test the actual, you can test to see which one performs better. So A/B testing is really important with email if you're trying to set up campaigns over the life of your messages. But also then identify what your actual marketing message is. Like, what are you trying to get across? Like we talked about earlier, are you trying to offer them a value? Are you trying to offer them a sale? Figure that out early on and give them an opportunity to figure out if this is something that they want to interact with. Also, timeliness. I love to test out time of day and time of week. So, emails generally do better Tuesdays and Wednesdays for most industries. Some emails on Sundays, depending on what type of business it's for. Because Sundays people are, settling down from their weekend, they're preparing for their week, they may open their email. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, people have gone through their inbox a lot through on Monday, and they now may have more ability to read through your messages. Also, time of day. Are you going to send an email when everyone is driving to work? That's probably not a good time for people to get your open rate up. And then, knowing that people generally, if you send an email at 10 o'clock at night, by the time 8 o'clock in the morning wakes up, or 10 o'clock in the morning wakes up, when they've gotten to their desk or they start working, they've gotten 25 more messages that now take priority in their inbox over yours. So there's a lot of things to consider like that, and it's one of those things that you can test as well. And then your tone of voice, like, are you excited when you talk to them? Are you upbeat? Are you lively? Does your tone of voice match the audience that you're going after? If you're going after 20-year-olds and you're selling, scarves, maybe don't say like, stay warm like grandma this summer, or this winter. That might not be the best way to talk to that type of person. So identify who your audience is and then know how to talk to them properly. Really important things to consider. Okay, so next, let's talk about a different type of email. These are particularly drip and nurture campaigns. So drip and nurture campaigns are not something that the average person might know about, but it's basically a way to say, hey, I'm going to nurture our relationship by sending you a series of messages over time that are more time-based. So like, you've interacted with me today, or you've purchased from me today. Now, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to go back and say, hey, how did you enjoy your product or service, right? And then 3 weeks, 5 weeks down the road, or 6 weeks down the road, I'm going to say, hey, it might be time for you to purchase another one, right? So those are time-based, based on the life cycle of your customer. Drip campaigns are a little bit different, where it's really sending like marketing information to potential prospects who are not necessarily customers. So people who may potentially be customers over time, over longer periods of time. And it'll give you the opportunity to nurture those prospects over a length of time, right? So drip campaigns are more along the lines of, hey, I'm going to casually drop something in, every 6 months or so, just to remind you that I'm here. So those are a few of the two different types of emails. I think Gareth has something he wanted to add about email subject lines as well for drip, nurture, or transactional emails. So go ahead, Gareth.
Hey, thanks so much, Michelle. This is
Yeah.
amazing content, by the way, and thanks for letting me just hop in.
Yeah.
And emails are pretty, it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and it's something that is kind of on my plate at WooCommerce as well. And your point about the email subject lines really stood out to me, because if no one opens your email, it doesn't matter what's inside, right? And that's why subject lines are so important. And I think you mentioned seeing something about a sale, and that led you to open it and engage with the email. And what I really want to reiterate on that point is that your subject line should address what your audience will care about the most. It should be relevant, and obviously use the language and tone like you mentioned as well. If your subject line is engaging and it speaks to that audience's, it solves that pain point, or it speaks to their needs, it's only natural that it's going to improve your open rates, right? Which obviously matter when it comes to email marketing, as well as sales, and the two are tied together. A high open rate and a message that converts is such a win. So I really want to stress the importance of a really good subject line, and if you can, devoting some time to learning a bit more about them and becoming a bit of a subject line expert, so to speak.
Definitely agree. It's something that is a learned, it's learned. I know a lot of people are probably new to maybe this part of marketing. So it's not something you have to be perfect at the beginning, but I think, like Garrett said, you have to say something that makes them consider opening it. And then on top of that, you also, when they open it, want to prove that it was valuable to open it, to get them to open the next one, right? I know there's probably a lot of questions about even how do you get email addresses and how do you even get the email addresses to know or how to market these people? There are a number of ways to do that, and I didn't really address it here, but I probably should have. So first of all, if you're running if you have a blog or anything like that, you should capture emails on your website through like a lead gen. So basically, like it can be a pop-up that says, "Hey, subscribe for updates," or subscribe to figure out more about this thing, or to learn more, to follow me on my journey, whatever that messaging is for it. But then also, if you are giving away or selling a product or a service, you also have the opportunity to capture emails there. So the only thing you need to do, like legally, there are some things that you have to do to make sure people can opt out. But also you want to make sure that people opt in. So if you're selling them something in the middle of your, you know, your transactional flow, you would say something like, "Hey, add your email to get more marketing messages or notifications or offers in the future." Someone would check that box, and then you'd have their email address, which then means you have the right to email them. And then until they opt out, you have the right to email them. So hopefully that makes that pretty clear on how you actually can get email addresses. There's a ton of services that offer that for you. If you have any questions about that, drop it in the chat and we'll try to get to it as well. Okay, so how do drip and nurture campaigns actually help your business? Brand awareness is like number one. If if someone found you by happenstance, right? Like they just happened to come across something that you had and they were like, "Oh, I'll give you my email, you know, whatever, because I might be interested." And then they never really hear from you, or they never see you anywhere else. If you're a newer business, that's an opportunity for you to really offer, like send them a drip campaign to say, "Hey, we noticed that you were interested in us. Here's some more information about what we do," or "Here's, you know, how you can interact with us on social media or in other places online." It keeps that connection with them and it helps them to identify you at a later time. Also, it keeps your business top of mind. So if you send them an email and say, if for example, if you have, let's say you have a digital guide or something you want to share with the world, for example, like one of our blueprint books. If we have a guide that we want to share with you, and you found us through a friend of yours that said, "Hey, you should get this book." So then you go and download it. You have to give your email to download it. You get the book, and then they say, "Oh, that's cool. One day when I start a website, or one day when I need that type of thing, I'm going to go back to that person." The likelihood that they'll forget is very high. So if they don't need you for another 6 months or 8 months, they may completely forget the name of your brand. They may completely forget the type of business that you were. They may have forgotten about the book, but they won't forget you if you stay in touch with them. I don't suggest sending, you know, nurture campaign emails or anything like that on a weekly basis or even a bi-weekly basis. Maybe it's every 3 to 6 months. Maybe it's something like that, just to where they continue to see your name pop up and they say like, "Oh, okay, I've seen Bluehost in my inbox," and then, "Oh, I saw Bluehost in my inbox again." So then when I think to build a website, I say, I should probably contact Bluehost, right? So that's just an example of how it can keep your business top of mind. Also, there's more things than just marketing messages that you should send out. There's also opportunities for, especially, you know, in times like this around COVID, where you have to identify changes in your business. There's a million challenges that can come up with changes to your location, your hours, anything like that. A cancellation of an event that you're putting on, an update to a book, for example, if you had like a digital guide or something you were giving away, anything like that that you need to notify your customers about, you should always use email to do that. Is that the only thing you should use? Absolutely not. You should make changes aware on your website. You should make those changes to your Google My Business account if you use that, to your social media profiles. All those types of things should be addressed. But like I said, there's more than just marketing messages you should send out. There's also transactional, you know, "Hey, you made a purchase, here's your receipt," you know, things like that, that you should send out as well. So communication is really important when dealing with your customers, and it really helps to define their experience with your brand. So really consider all the different types of things you should be telling them. So next, let's talk about word of mouth marketing. This is a huge one, and it's even bigger in today's society. And in reality, this is a really this is a really accurate quote. "Happy customers become your biggest advocate, and they're your most successful sales team. And I like to change this a little bit to say they're your most successful and most cost-effective sales team. When people are advocating for you online, especially in reviews and things like that that you're not paying for, that is huge in terms of your marketing impact and your brand impact, and it is free. Social media is free. You don't really pay for anything outside of ads, or the creative things or creative things or resources you use to get people to help you with your social media. Other than that, like, you can go online today and create a post on your social media account that has a quote from a customer of yours, and you can ask that customer, hey, can I tag you in this, so that people can see this is a real person and not, you making up, hey, so and so said my business is great. People don't really believe that anymore. They really want a face to say, oh, okay, this person who has this business said that your coffee mugs were top of the line, so now I might consider it. Also considering, I know that influencers are a little bit different in terms of, they're a paid source of truth. They also do still offer that word of mouth marketing, because people believe people that they believe, right? So if they trust, or people that they trust, if they trust their blogger buddy who has 500,000 friends or 500,000 followers on Instagram, and they say like, hey, when she tells me that this product is really good, I believe that it's a good product. That is also considered word of mouth marketing. People talking to their family and their friends about how you impacted their business or their life in some way, or made them feel really good about themselves and the clothing item that you sold them. That then tells their friends, oh, okay, Debbie says that she really likes this shirt and it's really soft and comfortable. Now I'm going to go look it up. And then when Debbie told me that, and I went and looked it up, and then I told my friend, then my friend went and looked it up. You now have more traffic to your site. You have more people that are potentially prospects or purchasers in the future. And then again, this is an opportunity to get them into a lead generation form where you ask for their email, you capture their email, you ask them to follow you online on social media, and now you have an opportunity to consider to constantly impact their buying and purchase decisions over time. So these are really important things to consider when you want people sharing things on your behalf. You identifying your user experience and your product and things like that, that's going to impact how they talk about you. One really bad review or multiple really bad reviews can greatly impact your business over time. So this is a huge part of your branding efforts and something that you should consider when creating that experience for your customers. Again, highly effective, highly valuable. They can promote your network, where your product or service throughout all of their networks, and you have the opportunity to impact thousands or millions of people, depending on how big it goes. But like I said, one person tells another person, it becomes a chain reaction, and more people hear about you and know about you. So the other part of that is the business of customer reviews. Um, Good reviews can really help build your social proof. So social proof basically just means, hey, she has this product or service. Now I have proof of that by seeing someone else talk about it, whether again that be on social media or on like a review site. So someone writes a review about you on Yelp, for example, like especially if you're a restaurant or a food truck, which are really huge these days, or anything like that. When people write a review about you on there, it goes a long way. And I know one of the first things I look at on Yelp for a restaurant is the number of reviews that they have. So really trying to get people to actually place reviews for you. And we really want to do this when you know that you've got your experience, in a great place, where you've asked people in front of you, you go to their table, or you ask them by email, like, hey, how was your experience with us? Rated on a 1 to 10 kind of experience or level. Then you can know, like, okay, my business seems to be doing well. It's picking up. People are saying great things about us on social media and on review sites or on these surveys that we put out. So now I feel like we should really, go live in other places and activate our brand in other places. And that gives them an opportunity to then get more people who are going to see it, right? Because if I see a restaurant that has a 5-star review, 5 stars on Yelp, but they only have 5 reviews, I'm less likely to go there than somewhere that has like a 4.8 but 2,000 reviews, right? So the numbers really are important here, but they're not the only thing that's important. Quality is definitely always still number one. So how do you encourage yourself to leave a review, or to encourage them, or encourage people to leave a review, or to give you that word of mouth marketing? We're in a really live world where people are using online channels, and there are definitely a lot of tips and tricks that you can use to get people to go into those kind of funnels for you. I don't know, based on where all of you are, if the Better Business Bureau is something that you're using or that you're paying attention to, but it is really kind of like a dying brand in some ways, where people have realized, hey, this is not, somewhere that's a legitimate review site. In a lot of ways, it's where people go to complain because they feel like it's a government entity. So those sites do, they have a lot of negative reviews on there. I wouldn't spend too much time trying to, spend a lot of money to get the Better Business Bureau to rank you higher or anything like that. And instead, go to places where people are actually caring, like Amazon and Yelp and Google and social media and all those different types of places. Um, so you can encourage people to leave reviews by putting a call to action on your site. So like, hey, are you a customer, or you just purchased, or something like that? Click here to leave a review in this place. Put it on your social media. Like, hey, we're building out. I'm a in my free time, which is kind of funny to say. There's really no such thing as free time these days. But in my free time, I'm a wedding photographer, right? So I enjoy wedding photography, and when I send my customers or my clients their galleries, their online galleries and stuff like that, I say, hey, I'd love for you to leave a review on this site or this site, like the Knot or something like that. So then people are encouraged to say, like, yeah, you gave me great service. I'd love to go and talk about how, how awesome you were. Or in your follow-up emails, like, say, hey, did you find value from the guide that I gave you for free, or the product that you purchased from me for free, or whatever that is? My what's it called? Like, you're giving them like services, like not like a therapist, but like life coach, or like tips, like you're giving them tips or things to help them be better. Did you find value in that? Like, in the conversation with them, say, hey, go ahead, and I'd love for you to leave a review. When you ask people to their face or directly, they're more likely to do it, because if they really enjoyed your product or your service, they want you to succeed, because they want to be able to come back to you later. So use call to actions on your receipts. If you actually have receipts that you're giving people, put on there, online, your digital receipts or your physical receipts. Say, hey, like, go on, this place, and leave a review, and offer them uh, like a deal for it. Like, hey, if you go and submit a review by scanning this QR code or whatever on the bottom of your receipt, we're going to give you, $5 off your next purchase. People are way more likely to do something when they have a financial value that comes from it. So these are just a few ways that you can kind of encourage people to go in and leave reviews for you. So now let's talk a little bit about, what do we even call success? What does success look like? What does that mean? There's a lot of different ways that people track this. I didn't go into all the ways, but since we're in a digital world and most people are not having, brick and mortar businesses, and we've talked over the past 2 weeks about, online stores and, your online business, running an online based business, you really have to think about your net promoter score. And this is something that may be new to a lot of people, but it is basically an index rating from 1 to 100 that basically says, how likely are you to recommend my product or my service or this business to a friend or a family member? That question alone tells you every single thing you need to know about how well your business is performing. You will always have people who will give you a low score because you didn't give them the thing that they wanted, or they tried to get more hours out of you and you didn't, you wanted to charge them for more hours, whatever. There's always going to be that situation. But in general, people's ability to give you that word of mouth marketing score, that net promoter score, will tell you how well you're doing. So it helps you identify a lot of root causes in your issue, in your business as well. So if people are saying, I give you a 6, you can set it in a lot of different ways. There's a ton of businesses who that do this for you. I'm going to use an old one, for example. I'm not necessarily recommending this one, but Trustpilot is one that a lot of people have heard of. It's a review site, but they basically, you can set the question that you ask people. So you can set that net promoter question that says, how likely are you to recommend this business to other people? And if someone says below a certain score, then you ask them why. And that can be a drop down menu to say, like, was it the actual product or service? Was it the experience, friendliness, whatever? A lot of people get this like at restaurants when you go to a restaurant and they have like the little tablets where it says, how good was this? Or you buy a food online, for example, like through DoorDash or Uber Eats or something like that. It'll say, how great was this service today? And if you give it 5 stars, they don't ask you any questions. If you give it 4 stars or 3 stars, they say, what can we have done to better your experience? That's them capturing their net promoter score. So when you look at it now, you'll probably look at it a little bit differently. And I'm a geek in ways like this where I get really excited about stuff like that, because you can really capture a lot of important data by asking these questions. So when somebody gives you a 6 and they say, hey, the shirt tore in two washes, and you notice that, hey, like 10 people out of the last 20 purchases have said the same thing. Now you need to go back to the drawing board. Like, do you need to get a new manufacturer? Do you need to get a new type of material? Like, what is it that you need to fix? And this allows you to fix a lot of things early on. So again, your net promoter score is something that you can find by using different services. We'll talk about a few of them a little bit later. Like brand sentiment kind of tells you the same thing, which we're going to talk about next. But like if you sign up for Trustpilot or review sites or things like that, or if you have one on your site, I know that there's probably a WordPress plugin for that. I'll look into that later and hopefully put that into the FAQs for you all. If anybody knows, anybody on the organizing team knows of any tools, feel free to chime in now and talk about that. Okay. So brand sentiment. This is basically evaluating your social media. This can also be through PR, like public relations, whether that be like your brand sentiment in the media, like how the media talks about you, or brand sentiment in terms of how your customers talk about you or followers or whatever that looks like. So there's a few different sites that you can do this on, but essentially it's trying to figure out if people are talking generally positively about you, generally negative, or are they neutral? A lot of people may say that neutral is good. I don't think it's, a long-term goal. You definitely should want to be more positive than neutral. Neutral identifies that they are not going to be brand loyal. When you see that people are not saying anything great about you and not anything bad about you, I can almost guarantee you that they're going to find a new product or service later. If people are saying, it was okay, they're not going to tell their friends about that. They're not going to tell their family. They're not going to post about it on social media. They're not going to follow you online. They're probably just going to say like, it was okay. If I found them again, I might buy something again. But you really want that wow experience. And all these things, again, all of these experiences are leading to your word of mouth marketing. We understand that small businesses don't have the budget to go and spend big dollars on huge influencers to promote their products, or on advertising for Google, which is very expensive, or even paid social ads and things like that. So you really wowing people and getting them from that neutral to positive is going to do leaps and bounds above what you could do with a neutral score. So it's kind of figuring out what their thoughts are directly related to your business, and it really helps you to enhance your your products based on their needs. So again, if it's neutral, try to figure out why. Like if you find that your customers, this is another thing about email actually. So if you're segmenting your customers, and segmenting basically means you're putting them into buckets. So if you're sending out email and you're saying, hey, you purchased a product from me, how was your experience, right? And they say, not great, or they don't say anything, or they don't open your emails, right? 6 months down the line, you can segment all the people who haven't opened your emails, and say, these are my this is my now inactive customer list. If you have a product that they should be buying, every 2 weeks or every month, and they haven't bought it in 6 months, it's a likelihood that they're not brand loyal. So this is an opportunity for you to send an email and say, hey, where could we have done better? And this email subject line is going to be a little bit different, because you're saying like, maybe I've seen things like, we missed you, like, how can we get you back? Or we haven't seen you in a while, we haven't heard from you. Is there something that we can do better? Or looking for feedback, tell us what we could have done, what we can do next time, something like that. I see these all the time. They're very effective. And a lot of times if a customer is neutral and not negative, if they're neutral, they may actually open that, because then they're like, well, this is a good opportunity for me to say, what's wrong, or, what I could have done better. And then from there, you can have a survey, which could be, you're using email, if you use Constant Contact, this is the example I've been using. Constant Contact allows you to create surveys, and you can send out that survey by email and create a subject line that says, hey, what could we have done better, or what can we do better next time? So then they can respond to that. Then you can go into your tool and see how many people scored it. See, if you gave them, multiple choice options, what they said was the downfall of your business. Also doing like, surveys through like some of your valuable customers, saying, hey, I know you're constantly buying from me, but I want to make sure that we're, getting a good experience for everyone. Can you tell me some things that you think we could do better? Or at the time of purchase, like, what could we have done better? How was your experience? Right, a pop-up, right after they check out, that says, how was your experience on my site? Because that'll tell you if it's, a problem with your website potentially, or if they, have any thoughts about, how you talk about things on your site. So some tools for brand sentiment are Hootsuite. Hootsuite and Brandwatch are the two that I use most often. It tells you, it scrubs your social media, you connect your social media to them, and then it tells them, it pulls all of your social media mentions and followers or comments and things like that, and it identifies keywords that are considered to be negative or positive, or neutral. So if someone says, I bought from Bluehost today, I have my website. Now I have a website, right? That doesn't feel positive or negative, it feels neutral. But if you said, I bought from Bluehost today and I hate my website, that word hate would be triggered, or saying I love would be triggered, or good experience or good service. Those words are triggered, and they kind of help to pull in a sentiment score for you. So social media engagement is also a great way to figure out what people think about your brand. Because generally, I don't know if anyone's been on Twitter any time recently, or on Instagram or anything like that. People will tell you how they feel about you on the internet. They will always tell you whether they hated what they experienced, whether they loved it. Neutral people are a little bit harder to come by, but you gauging, your increase in followers or likes based on, the timeliness of when you sent an email or a campaign that you put out or a new product that you rolled out helps you to identify success metrics. The amount of people are sharing, that is the biggest indicator of people being brand loyal. If people are sharing something from you, that means that they've taken an extra step. And a lot of times they may share it with a comment or a commentary so that their followers know why they're sharing it, right? Whether they agree with it, disagree with it, or whatever. But engagement on social media, comments, shares, retweets, those types of things tell you exactly how someone really thinks about you and how much they're invested in your brand. And then click-throughs are basically saying, like, if you have, hey, check out the link in my bio, or hey, here's a link to go and buy this thing that I'm selling, or whatever. People clicking to it says that they probably have an interest. What I do find interesting is that if someone clicks on it and then they don't purchase, that may tell you that you have a gap in your experience. And so there's a lot of ways to measure that kind of stuff. But essentially, if they clicked on it, they shown interest, but then they didn't purchase, maybe you didn't have the product that they needed, that they thought they needed. Maybe your advertising is kind of coming off a little clickbaitish, and you don't want to be clickbaitish where people, click thinking they're going to get one thing and they get another thing. That kills your brand loyalty, kills your brand sentiment, kills people's idea of you in their head, and it's really hard to come back from something like that. But outside of just posting new things or doing things like that, you also want to engage with them. When they're commenting, comment back, respond to them. If it's another business that's following you, follow them back, especially if they're in your area. Share things in your community. If you have a community-based business, like an ice cream shop or something like that, and there's restaurants that are nearby, like them as well, and say, hey, if you're next to this place, we're there as well, and kind of give people the opportunity to interact with you on a geographic location, or locale, and get them interested in coming, like, hey, after dinner, stop by for ice cream. So maybe you went to dinner at that place and then you took a picture of it, posted on your social, and then said, now I'm enjoying my favorite treat that we sell, which is, this flavor or whatever that is. I know Rob has a lot of great things he wants to include. Rob is the director of marketing from Jetpack, and he was presenting most of presentation too. So Rob, I know if you have some ideas on how people can use social media engagement, go for it.
Yeah, I just have one time-saving tip. Thanks, Michelle. So if you're on a lean team or doing it yourself, it's hard to find time to do all these things and promote your business on social. One easy trick is with Jetpack. It's free if you have the plugin. There's something called Publicize, and you just connect your social media accounts, and then every time you have a new plugin, or sorry, a new page or a new post, it can automatically post to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn and Tumblr. And so I think that's a really good habit to get into, so you don't have to remember to do this yourself every time to log into all those different platforms. So check that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely a tool you should look into. We still have a lot of we have a lot of webinars that are about social media, that go into, interacting with creating a social calendar, tools that you can use to create, visually appealing posts, things like that. We'll share that in our FAQs as well. But we had one recently from our blogger webinar, and also an actual just social media webinar. So we'll share those with you in the FAQ blog and in the emails that we send out. So essentially, that's what we want to talk about for social media, is like this is how you actually get people engaged and interested in your brand long term, by their interest in following you and engaging with you online. So this is another one of my favorite quotes, and Vimeo is a really, big tool, video tool, but essentially effective marketing isn't just all left brain or all right brain. It isn't just creativity and analytics. It's a little bit of both. It's a really beautiful mixture, in my opinion, of understanding people and providing empathy and providing and that's kind of something that you want to do on social media as well, right? If someone says they're upset about something, be empathetic with their, with their frustration. Don't invalidate their feelings. Say, man, I can see how that can be frustrating for you, right? This is how I want to help to course correct this issue that you've come across with us, or however you say that. But essentially, like, purpose-driven marketing is really something that I think about when I talk about this a lot. Is it's really that idea of having a purpose behind your brand, and people then using that purpose to drive them to be using that purpose to make people brand loyal to you. Tom's is my favorite example of this. I have 150 pairs of shoes from Tom's, but they have a really clear mission, which is like to provide shoes to people everywhere, right? So they've reached people on an empathetic level, and they've moved them with a drive, like a purpose, right, to what they're trying to accomplish with their brand or their service. And it really makes people then say, okay, not only do I want to purchase from you, I also believe that that what I'm doing is helpful to your life. Sorry about that. I think my screen just popped up. So it's really one of those beautiful marketing tools. I really would suggest looking it up. I think we'll probably do a webinar on it at some point. But it's really something that's great to consider when you're trying to like figure out what your brand message is and how you go to the market, to the world with your product or your service, and get people interested in what you're doing. So one of the biggest things then is to say, how do you keep people from being remorseful for purchasing your product? Buyer's remorse is one of those things that will make people have a negative sentiment about your brand. Buyer's remorse is what people feel when they pay for a product or service they don't like or that they're not happy with. This happens regardless, right? Sometimes it's, you can have a really great product and somebody can be remorseful because it was super expensive. But your service and your experience is what helps to get people interested in continually coming back to you. So here are some tools to help you to help avoid that. The number one thing, and I'm going to scream this from the rooftop, offer great products and services. If your products are not up to par, if they're not there yet, if they're not, if you're still working out tweaks, figure out the tweaks as much as possible. Enlist your friends, your family, small groups of people. Focus groups are a great way to do that. If you have like a community Facebook group or something like that, like for where you live, and you have a new business or a new product that you want to try out, get people from your community to test it out for you and give you really honest feedback. Say, hey, I'm going to give 10 people from the community my new socks for free, right? And I want you to wear these socks for 2 days, and then I want you to come back to me and give me, complete the survey or let me interview you for 10 minutes on why you think this is a good or a bad product. That is invaluable feedback that you can get before you really go into market and really go loud and proud with your brand or your product. I would suggest this every time. It's a great way to do that. Also, give a coupon to use for future services to say, hey, like, we want you to come back again. You purchased this very expensive product, right? Here's $10 off or 10% off your next purchase. I don't suggest doing this all the time. This is not, you don't want to be known as the coupon brand where you constantly give people or devalue your product by saying, I'm going to give you a discount. But this is one of those tactics you can use in email where it's like, hey, these people have not been active with us for a long time. So I'm going to offer them a coupon to come back and purchase something else. Or maybe I've worked with people in my community to find other products or services that are willing to give a 10% discount for my customers. So then I'm going to offer them that. So again, value-based, you're offering them something outside of just your great product and service. Activate their loyalty by following up with them. This is your email, your social media, your surveys, all the different ways that you can interact with people that have purchased from you. If you have an Instagram account for your socks, I don't know why I'm using socks. I think my feet are cold, but if you have an Instagram for your sock company and one of your customers, tags you in a post and says, "Got these new socks. I love them so much." Whatever that is, interact with them. Share that story on your story, on your stories. Not just say, "Hey, this is great," and message them, but also share it with your followers so your followers can see it and they can see that you actually found value in what they said about your product or your service. Also, in terms of that, that's really what we consider user-generated content. So someone else created this content and now you're using that to generate content on your site or on your products or services. So great way to do that. Also, offer them value. So make sure that you're competitive in the market with whatever you're selling. If everyone is selling, socks for $10 and your socks are $45, you should maybe consider, what are my key differentiators from those, and is that differentiator enough to identify this huge of a sales gap or a cost gap? And then keep them invested through engaging with them, posting their content, liking their posts where they're sharing things with you. If it's appropriate in times, following them back, and saying, hey, I'd love to continue following you and continue the conversation, or asking them, hey, like, I saw that you love my product. I'd love for you to take this survey and I'll give you $10 off your next purchase, or I'd love for you to complete the survey because you liked it so much, whatever that is. And then customer service is huge. Like, how are your people that you are employing potentially, how are they impacting your customers? Are they giving them a lot of value? Are you being empathetic to their situations that potentially were negative experiences? Are you being honest with them and transparent, to say like, hey, I'm so sorry, my site is down and you couldn't do this thing that you wanted to do. I hate that happened to you. We're working to get it up. And just saying, like, not saying like, well, we don't know what you're talking about. My site's not down. Stuff like that. Like, just being really human and offering a human-based response to your customers, just to get them to try to come back and to value your opinion and your service. So that's all. That's all I think I wanted to present. I know we went a little bit over time, but I think we have some questions that we want to get answered. So let's go ahead and get into that. Did you see any questions that were helpful to answer today?
Yes. Hi everybody, I'm Desiree, the content specialist. In regards to questions, we have, how do I know my net promote score, my NPS?
So your net promoter score is something that I think I may have answered this right after they asked. It's something that you get through usually a tool like Trustpilot or other services like that. We can try to find a few and share it with you all. There's a couple where the customer will complete a purchase and then it says, how likely are you to recommend this? And then it goes into that dashboard for whatever that service is. But if you look up services like Trustpilot, that'll give you an idea. It's a review site, but that question in particular helps you to identify your net promoter score.
Thank you. If you get a bad review or two and fix the problem, how do you overcome the impact of those bad reviews?
So one of the biggest things you can do, actually, this is a great question, is to respond to the negative review. I cannot even believe I forgot to mention this. When people are posting bad things about you, that you've course corrected or that you've fixed, you should always comment that, whether on social media like Facebook or something like that, or on like an actual review site or anything like that. When somebody says something negative and you fixed the problem, you should go in and say, hey, first of all, respond as quick as possible and say, hey, so and so, please contact us at this thing or whatever. Then go back to it and say, hey, circling back on this, something like that. Debbie, we saw that you were upset about this. We've corrected the problem. Hopefully you feel confident in our response, and something like that. Facebook is an easy one because people can respond back to you as well, which helps other people then see like, oh, you actually fixed it because this person liked your response or they commented on your response or something like that. So it's pretty clear at that point what you're trying to say. And I actually see a question that I think we really need to answer since we're running out of time. It's about Jetpack. Rob, would you like to answer? It's a question about, what is Jetpack and how do they interact with Bluehost and WordPress? So Rob, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually get it a lot. So I like to think of WordPress as the operating system. Imagine if your computer runs Windows, it's kind of like that. And Jetpack is it's great for people just starting out because it does a lot of things to make your site better. For example, it does security. So, there's a lot of free features to get started, like it monitors if your site goes down and it alerts you right away, because that's very important to know. And other things like if people are trying to hack your passwords, it has basic protections like that. And then you can get additional things like backups and malware scanning. It also has things like I mentioned for social media and SEO, and also things like that speed up your website. So if you have a lot of pictures on your site, it can use what's called a CDN, and it's a little complicated, but basically it just makes your website display faster. And the cool thing that Jetpack has all of these. With other plugins, you might need to download 5 plugins to do all these things. And in Jetpack, they're all part of it, and you can turn on or off which ones you like, most of them with one click. So I definitely recommend checking it out.
Perfect. Thank you. There was another question. I think you're going to answer that one.
Yeah, I was just about to. There was one more about Jetpack.
Go for it.
It says, so Jetpack can post on social media to multiple platforms simultaneously, but how does it understand the tone of different platforms? Because Facebook and LinkedIn will have different tones of voices, and that's a very good question. So when you create a new page or post, the settings are right there on the sidebar, and if you want to use different text for Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, or for certain things don't post for, say, Facebook, then you set it all right there. So it's all part of the thing. So you'll see exactly, and it confirms, are you sure you want to do this? So you make sure that you're posting exactly what you want to each platform.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that hopefully that answers the question for the person that asked it. Okay, Des, I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
How and where do you get email addresses from to send marketing emails? Or how would you recommend obtaining email addresses?
So this I commented on, I think, in the session as well. Basically, you would need to use a service. I used Constant Contact as an example. There are basically pop-ups. So you can install a plugin on your WordPress site for Constant Contact or some other service where like if someone scrolls down your site, let's say 10% of your site, they just scroll down a little bit, a pop-up might come up and say, hey, are you interested in subscribing for information? They can subscribe there. They can subscribe from after purchases, or in person you can ask for email addresses. I've seen that at especially at conferences and things like that. If you have a booth or you're there and you're saying, hey, like I want to help people understand this thing that I do, I'm happy to take your email address. The one main important thing about email is that there are a lot of legal restrictions around it. So I would definitely suggest looking into the CAN Spam Act, which is basically people, there's a lot of different versions of it, but essentially people need to be able to opt out. They need to have a place to opt out of your emails. They need to be able to opt in or opt into certain messages. So like marketing messages versus transactional messages. And then also there's a lot of rules with, marketing emails to people in other countries. And now there's some new changes going on as well. So it's definitely changing the way we market. But I think the more up to date you are on all of those different rules and legislation, it'll help you out. But for small, usually for small, instances where you're just sending emails to, a couple hundred or a couple thousand people that are your actual customers, and you give them a place to opt out. That is the main thing for almost everything. Just making sure that you give them a place to opt out and that you're very clear on what they're opting into, and you're not harassing them basically, even after they try to opt out. Those are the main things to consider.
Thank you. If we have time for one more, would you please just break down one more time? People are asking, a drip campaign is for non-customer subscribers. Is a nurture campaign for customers?
So either can be for both, but drip generally drip is identified with non-customers, or what we would call prospects, but they can be for both. So anytime someone has an interaction with your brand, they've become a prospect technically. So if you've gotten their email address to send them an email, that means that they've interacted with you in some way or some form. So they could be a customer, they could not be a customer. So if you're nurturing, so if you think about it like nurturing a relationship is more generally identified with a customer because you have a relationship with them. So you're nurturing that relationship by continuing to communicate with them and to give them information or giving them updates on, hey, it's time for you to potentially to buy again. But a drip campaign can be for anyone who you want to continue the conversation with. So like I said, generally nurture is considered you're nurturing a relationship being a customer, a drip being more like, hey, it's a little further down the line potentially. They're a little more spread out, a little more sporadic for prospects and or customers. Hopefully that clears it up. But there's still a lot of information about it, and it's a lot. To be honest, a lot of it is up to interpretation. So hopefully that explains it enough to where it makes sense. Also, the name doesn't really matter that much when you're actually creating it. It's more so about the content that you're putting out and knowing that it's an email campaign of some sort, whether you call it a drip or a nurture campaign.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all we have time for, but I really appreciate everyone joining today. I know we had a lot of great questions that we didn't get into. Gareth did drop in can spam information in case anyone's interested into the chat. So go ahead and grab that before you hop off. We'll definitely add it to our FAQ blog as well. Like we said, we'll try to get that out to you all before the end of next week, or sorry, before the beginning of next week. And we'll also include some of the other webinars that we think, made sense for you to have, about social media or about other ways that you are marketing your business. So thank you again. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Gareth, for chiming in with your expertise today as well. And we really appreciate everyone joining. Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate everyone joining us for the past 3 weeks, and we hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.